2018, Sunday, July 1st, 2018. And we are live tonight. We have a jam-packed show for you, a lot to talk about. We also have some guests tonight as well. We're going to be joined by Queen Taese of the Liberated Minds Black Homeschool and Education Expo. We'll be joined in the second hour by Queen Taese. And then also we're going to be joined by Dr. Ola of UACO, the United African Community Organization. The 18th Annual African Unity Festival is coming up as well, coming up on July 4th. And we're going to talk about that some also. And I'll be there, of course, as well. All right. Okay, so on the African, so tonight's show we'll deal with Maxine Waters getting death threats. I know you've heard a lot about that, and some people saw the Facebook Live broadcast I did dealing with Maxine Waters getting death threats, and then also we'll deal with homeschooling African American children, the Liberated Minds Liberated Minds Black Homeschooling Education Expo. We'll talk about how the trauma of police shootings, how the trauma from police shootings, 911 calls, and slavery negatively impacts the mental health of African Americans. There was an article from thegrill.com dealing with that, and there was an article from also theatlantic.com, and they talked about that this morning on Politics Nation with Reverend Al Sharpton, Politics Nation. Okay, so we'll deal with that as well. Okay, and then also last weekend, I talked a little bit. Last Sunday, I talked a little bit about Juneteenth. Okay, a little bit about Juneteenth. Did not get a chance to deal with it as much as I wanted to, and we know that this Wednesday is the 4th of July. Or as Dr. Ishaka Musa Barashango called it, the 4th of July, okay? The 4th of July. Because they lied. That wasn't, we weren't free. Many African Americans were enslaved. So we'll talk some about the history of Juneteenth, okay, which commemorated June 19th, 1865, when Major General Gordon Granger went into Galveston, Texas, okay? And delivered General Order Number 3, letting enslaved Africans there in Galveston, Texas, know that they were free. Now, this was 2 weeks after the Civil War ended, also. All right, so we'll talk about that as well. Okay, and we'll contrast that with the 4th of July. All right, so on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Okay, so we control the radius of a man's thoughts. You can control the circumference of his actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here in the show. We deal with current events and history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Also go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right. And we're broadcasting on Facebook Live on 910 AM Superstation on Facebook. And also we're broadcasting on the African History Network as well on Facebook also. And on our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, I-M-H-O-T-E-P, on YouTube as well. All right. Okay, so this past week was a very, very busy week. And there's a lot going on. We had Supreme Court decisions. We had Justice Anthony Kennedy announcing his retirement. This is going to give Donald John Trump another Supreme Court nomination, which is going to be devastating. Don't say I didn't warn you. But also we saw that Maxine Waters received death threats. as well, and threats of violence. Okay. I did a Facebook Live broadcast this past week dealing with that. You can check that out on YouTube, Michael Imhotep, Imhotep, on YouTube. There was a good article, a few good articles, one from theroot.com, which talked about the death threats she was receiving. Okay. Rep. Maxine Waters says she is facing increased death threats. We know that it was last Saturday, at a rally last Saturday, which was June 23rd. She was in California at a rally, and she called on people to stand up and push back against the Trump administration. And if you see members of the cabinet, members of Trump's cabinet at a gas station out eating, she said confront them and push back on them. Now, she did not call for violence. This was nonviolent protest. Trump says she basically called for violence. He's lying, as he usually does. It's documented, Washington Post. He made 3,251 false and misleading statements in the first 497 days of his presidency, right? But when we look at the article from theroot.com, Rep. Maxine Waters says she is facing increased death threats, okay? When we look at this article, it cites a statement from Representative Maxine Waters, a California Democrat, who said that as the president has continued to lie and falsely claim that I encouraged people to assault his supporters, which she did not, while also offering a veiled threat that I should, quote unquote, be careful, even more individuals are leaving threatening messages and sending hostile mail to my office. There was one very serious death threat made against me on Monday from an individual in Texas this past Monday, which is why my planned speaking engagements in Texas and Alabama were canceled this weekend. So yesterday, June 30th, and today, July 1st, she had to cancel some speaking engagements that she that were already planned, one in Texas and one in Alabama, after a, quote, very serious death threat, end quote, made against her, based upon the reporting from the Washington Post. The article from the Washington Post, Rep. Maxine Waters cancels events after, quote, very serious death threat, end quote. She was interviewed this morning on AM Joy by Joanne Reed, and she talked about how the death threats, how's been more than one. We'll go to that clip in just a minute. She goes on to say in the statement that was published by theroot.com, she goes on to say, there was one very serious death threat made against me on Monday from an individual in Texas, which is why my planned speaking engagements in Texas and Alabama were canceled this weekend. Okay. She went on to say, this is just one in several various serious threats the United States Capitol Police are investigating, in which individuals threaten to shoot, lynch, or cause me serious bodily harm. Let me repeat this. She said, this is just one in several very serious threats the United States Capitol Police are investigating, in which individuals threaten to shoot, lynch, or cause me serious bodily harm. Okay. And also the Congressional Black Caucus is standing behind her, abcnews.com, abcnews.go.com. That's their official website. The abcnews.com website is a fake website, okay, with fake news stories. The official website is abcnews.go.com. They reported June 26, Congressional Black Caucus defend Maxine Waters amid Trump feud. Congressional Black Caucus defend Maxine Waters amid Trump feud. In the reporting, they published a statement from Congressman Cedric Richmond, who's the chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus. And he said, quote, in exercising her constitutional right to freedom of speech at a recent rally, Congresswoman Maxine Waters did not, as she has made clear, encourage violence like Donald Trump has been doing since the election. We know on the campaign trail, he called for protesters inside the inside the campaign speeches to be punched in the face. In one instance, he said, if you punch this person, I'll pay for your legal fees, things like this. And he also, remember, he said, I can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and not lose any votes. All right. So he has a history of making these statements encouraging violence. OK, at one campaign rally, he said, back in the day, they would have to carry that person out on a stretcher. He has a history of this. All right. Now he wants to play innocent victim and lie on an African-American woman. And you notice Trump has a pattern when his back is against the wall, when the Mueller investigation is heating up, when other things are being exposed about him. Michael Cohen is possibly about to flip on him. Michael Cohen has recordings possibly of he and Donald Trump talking. Donald Trump attacks one of three groups of people, or all three. He attacks President Barack Obama, he attacks Hillary Clinton, and he attacks African Americans. Notice a pattern. Okay, when his back is against the wall, when he's really in trouble, when he's trying to distract from what's really going on, these are groups of people that he attacks, or all three of them. Okay, and he attacked Maxine Waters. He insulted her IQ. He called her low IQ, even though he has not revealed what his IQ score is. He called Maxine Waters low IQ. So this is the type of game that this white supremacist is playing. All right, now, Cedric Richmond, chair of the CBC, went on to say she instead encouraged Americans to exercise their constitutional rights to freedom of speech and peaceful assembly by letting Donald Trump and members of the administration know that separating young immigrant children from their parents is not who we are as a country. Okay. Cedric Richmond instead pointed to Trump's own language, insinuating violence on the campaign trail. Okay. Cedric Richmond said, we cannot forget that Donald Trump as a candidate encouraged his supporters to beat up his detractors at rallies, and and as president morally equated white supremacists with anti-racists and encouraged police officers to beat up suspects. In fact, almost every day, Trump says something that makes this country more dangerous for people who look like Congresswoman Maxine Waters and other minorities, okay, including Muslims, with this warmed over, massaged Muslim ban that just passed the U.S. Supreme Court 5-4 split Republican. OK, where is the national conversation on civility in these moments? Now, there has been conversations about civility, but people are calling Maxine Waters to be civil, but she's being attacked by Donald Trump. So civility comes from the top down. Civility comes from the top down. Largely, Republicans are not saying for Donald Trump to be civil. They're not chastising Donald Trump for threats that he's made. OK, so civility comes from the top down. And Michelle Obama was correct when she said the presidency does not change who you are. It reveals who you are. The presidency does not change who you are. It reveals who you are. OK, now, Maxine Waters said Trump is the one who is creating lies. Trump is the one who is creating lies, trying to have people believe that I talked about harming people. There's nowhere in my statement, any time, any place that we talked about harm. OK, she went on to say, as a matter of fact, Donald Trump, she called him President Trump. I don't. Donald Trump calls for more violence than anybody else. OK, she said this during an interview with MSNBC. And she said that Trump made she went on to read off several statements Trump made on the campaign trail, highlighting his tone of violence against protesters at his rallies. She said, quote, I like to punch him in the face. Maybe he should have been roughed up. Try not to hurt him, but if you do, I'll defend you in court. Don't worry about it. OK, so they're laying out the facts about Trump. OK, Trump does not like to deal with facts. We understand this. He has a very, very strange relationship with the truth. All right. And I know we're coming up here on a break in a few minutes, but we're going to go to this clip in just a minute here. As well from AM Joanne Reed. Look at the article from Washington Post. Rep. Maxine Waters cancels events after very serious death threat. Okay. Representative Maxine Waters, who calls for public protests of Trump administration officials, has triggered a debate over civility in politics and said this past Thursday that she has canceled events in Texas and Alabama after a very serious death threat made against her. In a statement reported by CNN, the California Democrat said that Donald Trump took aim at her on Monday on Twitter. Quote, even more individuals are leaving threatening messages and sending hostile messages to my campaign. Okay. Now, Maxine Waters has been rebuked by Republicans and Democrats after calling at a Los Angeles rally last weekend for demonstrators to harass Trump's cabinet officials wherever they go amid an escalating debate over immigration policy. Taking to Twitter, Trump fired back by calling Maxine Waters, quote, an extraordinary low IQ person, end quote, and warning her to, quote, be careful what you wish for, end quote. What is Trump's IQ? When has Trump revealed his IQ score? Why does he keep attacking the IQ of African Americans when we know that the IQ test is culturally biased? It comes out of white supremacy. The IQ test is culturally biased. So why does he keep attacking, especially African Americans' IQs, but he doesn't reveal his own IQ score? We saw that during the campaign trail, he attacked. He called for President Barack Obama's transcripts. Okay, and we'll go to this clip here for a minute from AM Joanne Reed. She interviewed Maxine Waters this morning. Okay, let's go to this clip here, please.
You see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd, and you push back on them, and you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
After that moment of Maxine, Congresswoman Waters was attacked by Donald Trump and her own colleagues, and she even received death threats. Hashtag civility. But on Saturday, at a California protest against Trump's draconian immigration policies, the Congresswoman had a message for her critics.
I know that there are those who are talking about censoring me, talking about kicking me out of Congress, talking about shooting me, talking about hanging me. All I have to say is this. If you shoot me, you better shoot straight. There's nothing like a wounded animal.
Well, joining me now is California Congresswoman Maxine Waters. Congresswoman, thank you so much for being here. And I want to first start by asking you to just assure our viewers who, as you know, you're a favorite of the show. Have you been safe? Tell us a little bit about that aspect of things.
You want to know about the...
have you been safe? Are things okay? I know that there were some death threats this week.
Sure, absolutely. As you know, I've had several death threats. One such person will be in court in July, was arrested, was charged some time ago. But since the president's speech and so-called response to my words that I said early on about what was going on with those in his cabinet.
Continue this on the other side of the break. Listen to the African History Network show, 9:10 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. We are live. Call-in number 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number, okay? We're talking about Maxine Waters receiving death threats and threats of violence against her this past week. Washington Post reported on this. New York Times, all the media outlets reported on this. She was interviewed this morning by Joanne Reed on AM Joy, okay? Let's go back to that clip from AM Joy this morning.
Since the president's speech and so-called response to my words that I said early on about what was going on with those in his cabinet who were booed and who were asked out of a restaurant, etc. I've received more death threats. And one talked about lynching me. The other one, I believe, talked about shooting me. So, you know, basically, I believe in peaceful protests. But when they say they're going to kill me, I do report it.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And you have had the unusual and extraordinary, and it has to be frightening experience of being personally attacked by name by the President of the United States, who tweeted earlier this week attacking your intelligence, saying you and Nancy Pelosi become the face of the Democratic Party, claiming that you called for harm to his supporters, which you did not. Be careful what you wish for, Max. A pretty ominous ending to that tweet. And then I want to play what Donald Trump said on Wednesday, and this was during one of his rallies. Take a listen.
Okay.
Maxine, she's a beauty. I mean, she practically was telling people the other day to assault. Can you imagine if I said the thing she said? Can you imagine, seriously, if I said that or somebody else said that?
I mean, with the caveat that some of the things he said at his rallies do seem to have called for people to be assaulted. But can you just, for the average citizen who's not experienced having the President of the United States go after them personally like that, what is that like as a citizen of this country, let alone a member of Congress?
Well, I was blessed with courage, and I was blessed with the kind of strength that does not allow me to be intimidated by the likes of Donald Trump. As a matter of fact, early on in your program today, you played several clips showing how violent he is and how he supports violence and why he calls other people names and all of this extraordinary, outrageous activity of the President of the United States, the likes of which we've never seen before. So I am prepared for him. Again, I'm not intimidated by him. I think he does not deserve to be the President of the United States, and I simply stand up to him. And so he'll keep doing that as he has done throughout his limited career of his, and I'm going to get on. We're talking about what we as Democrats are doing to deal with the most important issues of our times, important issues that we need to be focused on, and providing the kind of public policy that will help create housing in this country. We have a housing crisis that will try and protect Obamacare, the ACA that they're trying to tear down every day, that will deal with infrastructure so that we can create jobs. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. I can defend against him and I can promote good public policy. I intend to do that, and let him call me whatever he wants to call me. Let him say whatever he wants to say. He will not stop me. He cannot cause me to shut down. That's what they would like to do. They want me to run away. They want me to stop talking. They want me to be quiet. But he can't do that to me. I won't stand for it.
And not only did you have that,
Okay, so that was this morning, Maxine Waters on AM Joy. Check out that clip, msnbc.com. It's entitled Maxine Waters to Trump, he will not stop me. Maxine Waters to Trump, he will not stop me. Okay, let's go to the phone lines quickly. Let's go to Jeff, line 2. Jeff, thanks for holding. Welcome to the African History Network show. Tell us where you're calling from.
What's going on, brother? This the brother Haitian descendant Levi, calling from Orlando, Florida.
Okay, brother. You watching on YouTube?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I'm watching on YouTube on my tablet, on my big screen.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, brother. Now I have a comment on Maxine Waters.
Go ahead.
What she doing,
Mm-hmm.
and yes, you're right. She didn't try to start a conflict with these with Donald Trump cabinets. But brother, you never thought that, like, for example, I ain't trying to be too long with it.
Okay.
Like, for example, like the black community, right?
Mm-hmm.
You think that here in this nation, the black people here in America,
mm-hmm.
you think black people here in America should care what's going on in the borders?
In the where?
I said.
In the borders?
The people here in America.
Yeah.
In America.
Yeah.
You think that black people should care about what's going on at the border?
Absolutely.
Right
Absolutely.
Now?
Absolutely. Let me explain why. Thanks for your call. We got a guest coming up in about 30 seconds, so you can call back, Jeff, after the interview. Absolutely. Why? Just look what just happened this past week. Pay attention to the U.S. Supreme Court decisions upholding the Muslim travel ban. Just because Venezuela and North Korea are on there, you got 6 or 7 Muslim countries. During the campaign trail, Donald Trump said he was going to call for a ban on Muslims coming to this country. Are black people Muslims? Are African Americans Muslims? January 9th, 2018, in a meeting dealing with DACA, Donald Trump called African nations, Haiti and El Salvador, S-hole countries. Do people immigrate? Do black people immigrate to this country from Africa and Haiti? This was what Donald Trump said. All of this is coming out of this white supremacist administration. Okay, the same administration that declared the war on drugs, May 12, 2017. Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, another white supremacist, declared the war on drugs. The war on drugs, we know, disproportionately targeted African Americans. It's the same administration that reversed President Obama's initiative to not renew contracts for privatized prisons. August of 2016, President Obama announced that contracts for privatized prisons for federal prisoners would not be renewed. Donald Trump reversed that. Why? Because Donald Trump ran on the platform of law and order. This is why I told people, you got to pay attention during the election. Go back and listen to my podcast, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, during the 2016 election. I was doing national radio 5 days a week. All those podcasts are still there. The same white supremacist administration that's attacking Mexicans, that's attacking Hispanics, telling people that Hispanics are taking your jobs, when at the same time you got 6.7 million unfilled jobs in the country. You got a record number of unfilled jobs. Under President Obama, about April of 2016, it was about 5.5 million. You got 3.8% unemployment. Trump is targeting other people. This all deals with 26 states in this country where white people have a negative birth rate. This all deals with the fear of the browning of America. Now, the U.S. has 2 borders. They have a Mexican border at the south, and they got a Canadian border that goes all across the top of the United States. Go Google Canadian border U.S. and look, the Canadian border is not, I live in downtown Detroit. I live 3 minutes away from the Canadian border. The Canadian border goes all across the northern U.S. They're not doing this at the Canadian border where you have white undocumented immigrants coming into this country. They're not ripping white babies from white mothers' arms coming through the Canadian border. You think undocumented immigrants are not coming through the Canadian border? Yes, they are. But they're only targeting the Mexican border. Why? Because Donald Trump tapped into the fear of white people, fearing the browning of America, fearing them losing their numerical dominance in this country. The same people who are calling for the ban of Muslims, and you got black people who are Muslims. Talk to your African American friends who are Muslims, and they talk about the increased fear that they felt when Donald Trump was elected. And go to the Southern Poverty Law Center, SPLcenter.org, and look at them tracking hate crimes, not just against African Americans, not just against Hispanics, but against Muslims. Okay, the same people who are calling African nations, Haiti and El Salvador, and the people who come from them, they're demonizing them. They call them S-hole countries, are the same people who are trying to ban Muslims. They're the same people who are demonizing Mexicans, demonizing Hispanics. Okay, but Trump doesn't want to tell you that factory output since the 1980s has doubled. Read the article from MarketWatch.com that deals with this. They don't want to tell you that factory output has doubled since the 1980s, but corporations are doing it with 1/3 the labor force. It's not because the jobs being shipped overseas. Yes, some are. It's because of automation, robotics, software programs that have been eliminating jobs. But Trump is doing the same thing that the Nativist Party, also known as the American Party, also known as the Know-Nothing Party of the 1840s and the 1850s did when they blamed the Irish and they blamed Chinese and things like this for taking American jobs. He's doing the same thing, while at the same time talking about a record number of unemployment, 3.8%, talking about a record number of unfilled jobs, 6.7 million. The same white supremacist organization is doing this all across the board. And what white supremacy does is it pits groups of oppressed people against one another to fight one another. This is how a minority population stays in control. This is all designed to benefit the 1%. It's the same administration that's trying to take health care from about 20 million people, but you give a $1.4 trillion tax cut, 83% of the benefits go to the top 1%. It's white supremacy all across the board. Absolutely, we should be concerned about that because they're doing this to them. They're doing it to all of us. They're screwing over all of us. Let's go to Dr. Ola. Dr. Ola, thanks for holding. I had to answer that question. So on the line, we have my man, Dr. Ola, who is the head of the United African Community Organization. United African Community Organization, better known as UACO, and they have the 18th Annual African Unity Festival coming up this Wednesday, July 4th at Eliza Howell Park in Detroit. Dr. Ola, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm fine, sir. How are you?
I'm all right, brother. I'm all right, brother. It's good to talk to you. Good to see you yesterday out at the park. So you all have thousands of people that come out to this celebration, and a lot of people don't know about it. So tell people, what is the annual African Unity Festival that takes place in Detroit, the 4th of July, every year?
Yes, well, it takes place at the Eliza Howard Park. It's an annual picnic that we do for the family, just to get the family just close to the family reunion and things like that.
Family reunion, yeah.
As a family, we celebrate the Black history, and you are one of us who participate in the Black history, authentic African clothes and merchandise. You know, it's just a celebration of our people.
Okay, absolutely. So you have vendors out there. It's a celebration of African people. Now, it's a unity festival. Now, I know I've been out there a few years. I've been a vendor out there. And you have not just vendors, but you have different continental African organizations from Senegal, from Guinea, from Nigeria, from Ghana, Gambia, Mali, Malawi, Tanzania. So the different African organizations, when they have their tents out there, as people will see July 4th, Wednesday, July 4th, what are the different African organizations doing?
Yeah, what we do, this is a day that we are about 25 African national organizations. We all come together to celebrate the family, just like a family celebration. A lot of people don't go to work. We just decide, what are we going to do? We celebrate ourselves,
right.
Mostly like money, the African unity, the faith in ourselves, the love for each other. So it's a way to see ourselves again. It's a way to give praise to the ancestor. That the last time some people have seen each other maybe 1 year ago. So this is a celebration of the human spirit that we come together. But it consists of about 25, and the African American. Mm-hmm. Don't forget the African that is born in the homeland, and the African is born in the diaspora, in the Caribbean, in the Canada, in America.
Yes.
We are all set. So this is the time we all come together to celebrate the spirituality.
Right.
And the common unity.
Right. So you have so you have continental African organizations there, and you have African Americans there as well, coming together in unity. Yes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
The Caribbean too.
And the Caribbean as well, because we know throughout the diaspora, we know Haiti, Jamaica, and Cuba, Puerto Rico, things like this. Okay. Yes. So let me ask you a question. You hold this on July 4th. So July 4th is known in this country as Independence Day, but we know July 4th, 1776, most African Americans were enslaved, so we know it's not our Independence Day. Okay. So just curious, why do you hold it on July 4th, and what is significant to continental Africans about July 4th?
Yeah, well, like the Kuma once said, the liberation of Africans everywhere in the world. Until all the Africans are saved, they are free. So we choose the day because this is the day we are also free.
Okay.
The American people, the African American, we celebrate the African American. We celebrate. This is the last time we have an African American who's a president here.
Okay, Barack Obama. Sure.
So we are also an integral part of the civilization. We want to leave the past behind and move forward, because there's no way you are going to write the history of the United States of America now that you can't write the Black American.
Okay.
We have Martin Luther King, we have Malcolm X, we have Barack Obama now.
Right.
So we got to celebrate. It's not really things that separate us, but things that bring us together.
Okay, so celebrate things that bring us together. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So you choose July 4th. A lot of people are off work that day. It's not necessarily saying that July 4th, 1776, African Americans were free because most of us were enslaved. But since a lot of people have that day off, we come together to celebrate a unity between continental Africans, African Americans, and those in the Caribbean. Is that correct?
Yes. That's
okay.
What we are doing.
All right. Now let me ask you a question. So this is taking place, everybody. This is a free event. It's taking place Wednesday, July 4th, 2018 at Eliza Howell Park, Howell, Eliza Howell Park at Finkel and Telegraph Road in Detroit, Michigan, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you're looking for African history, books, clothes, souvenir, carving, right from the homeland.
Right.
Real African dancing, real African clothes for
right.
Beautiful women, sisters.
Right.
Real African agbada, dancing.
Right.
All the authentic African history books, all those things.
So these will be all these types of vendors out there. All these types of vendors. You can get African music, you get African clothing. Yes, go ahead.
Necklace. All shoes.
Yes.
African made.
Absolutely.
By the African.
Right. And then the African History Network will have a vendor table out there, Michael Imhotep. Yes. Come check that out. I have my DVD lectures there as well. We'll be out there all day. So come support that. So there's going to be African culture. There'll be dance. There'll be food, sports, music, and live performances. Go ahead.
Dancing, celebration, sports, soccer, all those things.
Soccer, yes.
Tug of war.
Right.
Stock race, all these things.
Absolutely.
Celebrate our community.
They have this all going on. This takes place every year, July 4th, Eliza Howell Park in Detroit, Finkel and Telegraph. It's a free event. It's family friendly. Bring the family out also.
Yes.
18th Annual African Unity Festival. Now, let me ask you a question. So a lot of times African Americans hear that continental Africans don't like us. Continental Africans hate us. So then this causes friction between continental Africans and African Americans. Talk about that. What's going on there?
Well, the issue here is that once, as a former United Nations officer, as a diplomat, I once asked people like that. He said the problem is that because we don't write our own history.
We don't write our own history.
Other people define us. What we're looking for is African Americans to participate in the African stuff.
Okay.
So, you hear about when Malcolm X went to Africa, Muhammad Ali, Andrew Young, we got to start having our honeymoon over there. And don't forget about what people is trying to tell us. There's more than bring us together than separate us. We are all one family. We are all extension of family. If somebody take your brother away, take your sister away, rape your children, rape your family, they come and tell you, no, he don't like you. How can he be don't like you?
Right.
Somebody take your sister away. You know what it is to take your mother and your brother away, and somebody come and tell you 10 years, 20 years, 3,000 years, oh, he didn't like you. It's because they're writing the book. Let us start writing our book by ourselves if we didn't write it right.
Right. They're writing the history.
This is what we are doing now.
Yeah. Europeans are writing the history. And as I tell people, the same people who told African Americans that continental Africans hate us, these are the same people who told continental Africans that African Americans hate them. Okay. And also what we're dealing with are the negative images of African Americans exported out of this country by white controlled media that depict us negatively and then influence the way other people perceive us and treat us. And then we see the same thing about Africa, the negative depictions of Africa and showing a lot of poverty and things like this, but not showing modern cities, not showing very well educated people in places like Nigeria or things like this, right? So white supremacy and white controlled media promotes this lie about African Americans and continental Africans. Okay, is that correct?
Yeah, basically what you're doing now, you are promoting yourself. You're promoting the African culture.
Yes.
20 years ago, 30 years ago, we probably don't even have people like you who could control a radio station. You could speak whatever you want.
Right.
When we start writing our own history, when we start broadcasting our own culture, when we start celebrating ourselves, that is when the history is done. Now, when other people write to us, I give you kudos, for what you're doing, and we are very proud of you, of your station and your communication. And you continue, brother, doing the right thing, because we want to tell our own story. We're tired and sick and tired of everybody telling our story. We want to tell our own story as it is for us.
Absolutely.
And that is what you are doing today, and we, the African community, congratulate you.
Thank you, brother. Well, power is the ability to define and shape reality and have other people accept your definition of reality as if it were their own. This is what power is. So this is why something like this is so important, okay? 18th Annual African Unity Festival at Eliza Howe Park, Howell. It's at Finkel and Telegraph Road, Wednesday, July 4th, 2018, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Free event. Bring the family. Is there a website or anything where people can get more information, Dr. Ola?
The website is myuaco.org. myuaco.org.
Okay, myuaco.
If you want to call us, you can call us on the telephone 313-574-2607.
Okay.
313-574-2607. And you know the number, my people.
Okay.
For our people who need direction,
right,
or want to vendor, or want to participate.
Okay, so the website once again is myuaco, UACO, yeah, .org, and then the phone number is 313-574-2607. 313-574-2607. If you need more information, you need directions, you want information about being a vendor, definitely come on out, okay? Well, look, brother, I will see you all bright and early Wednesday morning. People will definitely come out and support this event, support the African History Network. We'll be there all day. We'll have a big discount on a lot of our DVD lectures. And thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule, Dr. Ola. And where are you from, by the way? I forgot. Where are you from?
Oh, I'm from Nigeria.
That's what I thought. You Yoruba?
I'm really from the west.
I'm
really from the west side of Detroit. I've been here for such a long time.
Okay. Are you Yoruba?
Peace and love now.
Okay. Are you Yoruba?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's what I thought. Okay. Take care, brother. Have a good day. All right. So that's Dr. Ola from UACO, United African Community Organization, and they do the annual African Unity Festivals taking place this Wednesday. And we'll get this flyer at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We already posted it on our fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, okay? Let's go to the phone line. Let's go to Shaquan. Hey, Shaquan, thanks for calling in. Thanks for holding. Tell us where you're calling from.
Hello, how you doing? I'm calling from the Bronx, New York.
Okay, Bronx, New York, man. Okay, go ahead with your question or comment.
Yeah, well, it's not really a question; it's more of a comment. So, with everything going on right now in America, I say that this is America's test. This is what's going on now. Will basically define our future. And the reason I say that is because I'm a 27-year-old man.
Okay.
And I'm not too old, not too young, but where I'm from, there's a lot of gang violence, gang activity, things like that. And I was wrapped up in a lot of negative things.
Right.
Right. And it took the election, and it took Donald Trump becoming president for me to really, really, really realize what's really important.
Now, what's
so
really
that's
important?
why I say, yeah. So Donald Trump is a gift and a curse. We know what the curse is, but this is what I say the gift is. The gift is him becoming president. It actually it woke me up, and now I see so much things that's going on. So the things that he says, the way he conducts himself,
right?
It's unbelievable. So and this is our president.
Well, let me ask you a question. How long have you been listening to my show? Just curious.
I would say probably a month.
Okay. All right. Because during the 2016 election cycle, I was doing radio 5 days a week, and I was broadcasting on Facebook Live. I was warning people about all this stuff leading up to November 8, 2016. You can go back and listen to the audio podcast on my shows. I was telling people about his connections to Russia. I was talking about his comments. I was talking about how much he lies. I was talking about his white supremacist comments and how he was engaging in the othering of other people. and blaming other people for why white people don't have jobs and things like this. So let me ask you a question. What was it, and we're coming up on a break in a few minutes, why during the 2016 election cycle, there were a number of people warning America, not just black America, not just African Americans, but warning America in general about Donald Trump. So why was it back then you weren't keyed in on it? Why wasn't back then you didn't hear the clarion call?
That's why I brought up the gang violence and the thing that I was involved in. Sure. Because I to be honest, I could care at that point in time in my life, I could care less about who was going to be president and things like that, things like politics, stuff like this. Right. I didn't really care. Okay. So I remember the day like it was yesterday. I was sitting at work and I was watching the voting, the numbers, and him versus Hillary, and
that was November 8th.
She was up at one point. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. She was up at one point, and next thing you know, he won. And even at that point, I wasn't so, I guess, scared. I would say I wasn't really worried. Okay. But all of his rhetoric and just certain things, it's unbelievable to me. And then this is what I always tell people. I say, let's put race and color of skin aside. Right. Anybody that does and says the things that he does, let's put color and race aside, it's unacceptable. Right, right. And I just try to understand why you have his colleagues and his friends and family, Republicans, whatever you want to call them, they stick by his side.
Well, the reason why,
no matter what?
The reason why they stick by his side, two main reasons. One, he is fulfilling a very conservative Republican agenda with Supreme Court nominations, with federal court nominations of federal judges. He's changing the landscape of the federal courts with the very young conservative white male nominations he's making for federal judges. And the federal judge, that's a lifetime appointment as well. More cases go before the federal courts than go before the U.S. Supreme Court. Okay. They want, you have evangelicals who want the U.S. Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade. You have, and also he's doing the bidding of his billionaire donors like Robert Mercer, like Sheldon Adelson. These were people who were pushing for that massive $1.4 trillion tax cut, which 83% of the benefits go to the top 1%. Okay. Then also they, people like the Koch brothers, people like Robert Mercer, they want to repeal of the Affordable Health Care Act, because this then gives them a huge, this puts a whole lot of money into their pockets as well. So he's attacking the Affordable Health Care Act. Jeff Sessions redeclared the war on drugs, his attorney general, all this. They want to crack down on immigrants coming to this country, immigrants of color, not just undocumented immigrants, but also immigrants of color who are coming here legally. Okay. So he's fulfilling this conservative agenda that many of us don't even know exists. So the other thing is, because he has so many social media followers and he attacks certain people on Twitter, you have people in the House of Representatives, Republicans in the House of Representatives, as well as the U.S. Senate, who fear the backlash from his supporters and feel that either they won't be voted back into office by his angry supporters, or they also fear that there'll be a Republican challenger in the primaries against them, backed by Donald Trump.
I would take their spot.
Exactly. Wow. Okay, so people have to understand this three-dimensional chess that's going on as well. Okay, man. Okay, keep listening. All right, we're coming up on the break.
All right, yeah. I salute you, my brother. Keep
all right,
going,
thanks, Jeff.
I salute you.
Okay, take care, man. Thanks for calling. Keep listening. All right, and visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We have my online courses. We have them in a bundle pack. They're on sale $60. They include Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa. Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa. Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. That's a 14-hour, 7-session online course that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history in that as well. It's 10 courses in the bundle pack. It also includes African-American resistance in the era of Donald Trump, voter suppression, reparations, and how elections have consequences. African-American resistance in the era of Donald Trump, voter suppression, reparations, and how elections have consequences. All this stuff that's happening, I warned people about this. People ain't want to listen. People going to learn fat meat is greasy. I warned people about Trump, is white supremacy. I warn people about policies. I watched over 100 Trump campaign speeches and interviews during the 2016 election. I did fact checking on his statements. All that stuff is documented in my audio podcast at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. This stuff that's taking place, I told you was going to happen. The attack on Dodd-Frank, the attack on the Affordable Health Care Act. Many people don't know that the uninsured rate for African Americans was at based in about December 2016. It was at it was the lowest basically in history, recorded history, 10%. Okay, only 10% of African Americans were uninsured dealing with health insurance because of the Affordable Health Care Act, which then gave African Americans the longest average life expectancy at 72 years. This is directly related to the Affordable Health Care Act. Okay, so people have to understand elections have consequences. One of the biggest mistakes that we made is we thought the 2016 election was between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. No, it wasn't. There are 4,000 positions that Donald Trump has to fill in his administration. All right, we'll be back in a few minutes. 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. This is Michael Imhotep, host of the African History Network Show. We'll be back in a few minutes. All right, welcome back to the African History Network Show right here on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. You listen to the African History Network Show. It's Sunday, July 1st, 2018. We're live. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment, all right? Right before the break, we were talking to Jeff, and I want to give these two articles because we were talking about Donald Trump, his policies, the fearing of the browning of America. This is what the attack on the Mexican border is about. You have people coming in from Mexico. You have Mexicans coming in from Mexico, but these are not all Mexicans. You have them coming from Central America. You have them coming from the Caribbean. You have them coming from African nations. Many of them are fleeing horrific violence, gang violence. So Trump talks about MS-13, and he doesn't tell you that MS-13 was a gang that started here in the U.S. and then went into Mexico. See, Trump doesn't tell you that. That's U.S. terrorism that's exported to Mexico. 1. 2, less than 1% of the people coming through the Mexican border are MS-13. What Trump is trying to do is make MS-13 the face of undocumented immigrants, so then you can attack them and you can justify putting separating the children from the families, putting people in cages, things like this, and detaining them indefinitely. Okay, you can justify this. We have to be careful of how words are negative, pejorative terms are placed on people to then justify their mistreatment. Okay, and this is what's taking place. Negative terms are placed on people to justify their mistreatment. To dehumanize them, okay? And then you can treat them any way you want to. So what Trump did not calculate is he did not calculate people rising up like we saw with the protests yesterday. Over 700 protests across the country, tens of thousands of people, not just protesting the immigration policies. Okay, not just protesting that, but also protesting the Trump administration in general. It's not just what's taking place at the Mexican border that they were protesting. It's policies from the Trump administration as well, trying to take away health care from 20 million people. Okay, criminal justice. People were there for different reasons. All right, and check out the let's see. Look at the article from NBCnews.com. Thousands across U.S. join. Keep Families Together march to protest family separation. This is thousands across U.S. join Keep Families Together march to protest family separation. This is from NBCnews.com. All right. This is from June 30th, 2018. And it says hundreds of marches took place across the United States on Saturday as thousands of people demanded the Trump administration reunite families separated at the U.S.-Mexico border. Once again, they're not doing the same thing. They're not separating families at the Canadian border. And you go and you Google Canadian border U.S., that Canadian border goes all the way across the northern U.S. It's not just at Detroit. It's not just at New York. It goes all the way across the U.S. the northern U.S. The protests marching under the banner Families Belong Together are hoping to push the Trump administration to reunite thousands of immigrant children separated from their families after crossing into the United States. Now, as of Saturday, June 30th, there's still 2,047 children who have not been reunited with their parents. The bottom line is the Trump administration had no plan to reunite these children because they did not think people would care. They did not see this massive uprising coming. They thought they can just do whatever they wanted to do because Trump used terms to dehumanize people. And talking about undocumented immigrants, he used terms like infest, thugs, infiltrate, killers, criminals, under siege, massive crime, crime infested, breeding, remember slave breeding, pour into our country. This is the rhetoric. This is the language Trump is using towards a targeted group of people. All right. And if you see the Facebook Live broadcast I did a couple of days ago dealing with Maxine Waters getting death threats, I tied all this together. Check out the June 19th, 2018 segment from Meet the Press Daily, MTP Daily, MSNBC.com, entitled Trump Immigration Rhetoric Implies He's Appealing to Nasty, Cruel, Nativist Group. Nasty, cruel, nativist group, okay? And they show you the graphic of this type of language Trump has been using. This is coded language. This is on purpose. Some of these same type of terms were used and are still being used for African Americans, okay? All this is coming out of the same white supremacist administration, the same people who are trying to ban Muslims and deal with xenophobia and target Muslims and say that and try to label Muslims as terrorists. This is why you got to protect white America. This is basically who he's trying to protect, okay? But at the same time, Trump doesn't denounce white supremacy because we know white American men are a bigger domestic terrorist threat than Muslim foreigners are. That's documented. Vox.com, 2017, October 2nd, 2017. Since Trump took office, more Americans have been killed by white American men with no connection to Islam than by Muslim terrorists or foreigners. So where's the effort to protect America from white supremacists? Where's that effort? Where's that wall? How much is it going to cost to build that wall? When Donald Trump signed his since revised executive order banning people from 7 Muslim majority countries from entering the United States, this is back October 2nd, 2017, this article is from, he claimed it was to protect Americans from quote unquote radical Islamic terrorists. Remember that term? Radical Islamic terrorists. He said, we don't want him here. Okay, but in the 8 months since Trump took office, more Americans have been killed in attacks by white American men with no connection to Islam than by Muslim terrorists or foreigners. Remember in Las Vegas, Stephen Paddock? He killed 48 people, then killed himself and injured 500. Donald Trump didn't call him an animal. Donald Trump didn't call him a thug. So why is that? Radical Islamic terrorists inspired or directed by groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda do pose a clear threat to the U.S. Nobody's saying they don't pose a threat. But there's no question about that. Before last night's deadly shooting in Las Vegas, because this took place the night after Stephen Paddock killed 48 people, the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history occurred in June 2016 when an ISIS-inspired man opened fire in a gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida, killing 49 people and wounding 53. That was the Pulse nightclub shooting, right? And, okay, but here at home, the bigger threat has come from a very different kind of attacker, one with no ties to religion generally or Islamist extremism specifically, okay? So they give a few examples that occurred in 2017, all right? In August of 2017, 20-year-old white Nazi sympathizer from Ohio sped his car into a crowd of anti-racist protesters at Charlottesville, Virginia. That was August 12, 2017, killing a white woman who was an anti-racist protester named Heather Hare and injured at least 19. In June of 2017, a 66-year-old white man from Illinois shot at Republican Congress members during an early morning baseball practice, severely wounding several people. We remember that, okay, including Representative Steve Scalise of Louisiana. In March of 2017, 28-year-old white man from Baltimore traveled to New York City with the explicit aim of killing African-American men. When did Trump denounce that? He stabbed 66-year-old Timothy Kaufman to death and was charged with terrorism by New York State authorities. In May of 2017, the 35-year-old white man from Oregon named Jeremy Joseph Christian began harassing Muslim teenagers on a train in Portland, Oregon, telling them, quote, "We need Americans here. We need Americans here." Two men interceded. Okay. Joseph Christian then stabbed and killed both of them. They're trying to defend. He was attacking Muslim women. They stood up to defend the xenophobia. Okay. And they get killed by this guy. So where is the condemnation for the white domestic terrorism? Where's that condemnation? Read this article from Vox.com. And you have more incidences since then. This came out October 2nd, 2017. But it's enough for you to start the research. White American men are a bigger domestic terrorist threat than Muslim foreigners. Where's that ban? Where's that wall? Where's the call for that condemnation? Very interesting. So then when we talked about the browning of America before the break, and we'll go to the phone lines in just a minute here, two articles you need to look at, because this dealt with the study that came out from the Census Bureau, June 21st, 2018. People need to read that. Okay? A lot of people don't know about this. New York Times reported fewer births than deaths among whites in majority of U.S. states. Fewer births than deaths among whites in a majority of U.S. states. And this talks about how the Census Bureau has projected that white Americans could drop below 50% of the population around the year 2045, a relatively slow-moving change that has been years in the making. But a new report this week found that white Americans are dying faster than they are being born now in 26 states. So in 26 states out of 50, a little more than 50% of the states, white Americans are dying faster than they're being born. A lot of this has to do with the opioid crisis. Okay, now this is not an attack on anybody. We're looking at the studies coming from demographers. We're looking at the studies coming from the U.S. Census Bureau. Now, 26 states is up from 17 states just 2 years earlier. And demographers say that shift might come even sooner. This is the fear that Trump has tapped into. This is the fear that Trump is perpetuating. Okay. And then we look at the article from MSN.com. America's white population shrinks for the first time as nation ages. Okay. And this is from June 21st as well. All right. And they say the data show the nation's white population is aging rapidly as Americans delay their decision to have a family and as the flow of foreign immigrants from European countries ebbs or declines. So Trump, January 9th, 2018, in a meeting discussing over DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrival, he said he called immigrants from African nations, Haiti, and El Salvador S-hole countries and said, why don't we have more immigrants coming from countries like Norway, which is a predominantly white European nation? Okay, so as the immigration from white nations declines, you have an increase in immigration from nations of people of color. Then you have this attack against these particular nations. And you have the mistreatment. You have the zero tolerance policy announced April 6, 2018 by Attorney Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, right, at the Mexican border. But they're not doing the same thing at the Canadian border, where white undocumented immigrants come in. So once again, if you do not understand white supremacy and racism, what it is and how it works, everything else, and I do mean everything else that you think that you understand, will totally confuse you. And this is what Dr. Frances Cress Welsing and Nellie Fuller correctly taught us. Okay. Those on YouTube, can you hear me? Let me know if you can hear me on YouTube. Okay. This is important information. All right. So at the same time, minority populations are growing much faster, hastening or speeding up a demographic shift that has been decades in the making. The average non-Hispanic white American is 43 and a half years old. The average non-Hispanic white American, so the average white American, okay, is 43 and a half years old, according to the new data from the Census Bureau. The average Hispanic American, by contrast, is 29.3 years old. Demographers say the decline in the white population has been coming for decades as Americans decide to have children at later ages and as the baby boom generation moves toward retirement. Today, there are fewer white women in prime. Pay attention to this. All this is taking place Now, most people can tell you what happened on Love and Hip Hop last week, but they can't tell you about this. This is from the Census Bureau. This report came out June 21st, 2018. You got to pay attention to this because this is what Trump is responding to. This is what all this is about. Control of the Supreme Court, control of the federal bench, attacking immigrants. They even want to reduce immigrants, legal immigration coming from nations of color. Why? We know that immigrants tend to have a higher education level than people born in the U.S., and we know that African immigrants have the highest education level. So why would then Trump call African nations S-hole countries? Why would he do this? This is all about preserving genetic white survival. This is what this is about. And white supremacy is, racism is that power structure that comes out of the ideology of white supremacy. Racism occurs when one race of people control the majority of the wealth, power, resources, privileges, benefits, land, access to education, access to opportunity, access to media, jobs, etc. And they use that to marginalize, subordinate, and do harm to another race of people. I'm not talking about all white people. I'm talking about using that to target, marginalize, subordinate, and do harm to another race of people. This comes out of the ideology of white supremacy that comes out of the Dark Ages, and Europeans, when they're coming out of the Dark Ages, late 15th century, early 16th century, they start to circumnavigate the globe, and they realize that they are a minority in the world. And as they intermix with these populations, they see that that child coming out is no longer European. They just dealt with this for 800 years with the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors, who go into 711 AD in the Iberian Peninsula and go all throughout Europe. They go into France, they go into Sicily, they go into Crete, they go into Spain, they go into Portugal, they go into Germany, they go into England, they go into Austria, and they intermix with the population. They saw this for 800 years. And so they realized if they did not put mechanisms in place to preserve genetic white survival, they can be genetically wiped off the face of the earth. This is not an attack on anybody. I'm dealing with the history. You have to understand history. To understand the existence of something, you have to understand the pre-existence of existence. So we're seeing this taking place right now. This is not just 20, 30 years in the making. This is like 400, 500 years in the making. Let's go to the phone lines. Let's go back to Jeff, line 3. Hey, Jeff, thanks for holding again. We were talking to you before the break. Did you have any last comments before we go to Tony on line 2?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, brother. Well, actually, these politicians, Maxine Waters and John Lewis, now I know you've seen the clip when John Lewis, they separating our babies and all that. Mm-hmm. Now, you never thought that okay, John Lewis, were you thinking about crying out for black people when they were separating their babies back in 400 years of slavery?
I think he has. Well, first of all, we got to keep in mind, man, John Lewis was almost killed March 7th, 1965, a Bloody Sunday. We got to study John Lewis's record. Now, I disagree with John Lewis on some things, but I don't question his commitment. John Lewis had his skull cracked. He almost died March 7th, 1965, fighting for the right to vote that the 15th Amendment said was already ours. Okay, right. So one of the things we have to understand is that the Congressional Black Caucus is made up of 49 minus 1, John Conyers, 48 people. You have 2 in the U.S. Senate, Senator Kamala Harris of California and Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey. You got 46 in the House of Representatives, okay? They represent, last count was 78 million, but based upon the new numbers coming from the Census Bureau, June 21st, 2018, it's probably at least 80 million people they represent, okay? Based upon the numbers coming based upon the numbers coming from the U.S. Census, June 21st, 2018, there are 47.4 million African Americans in this country, up from about 44 million in about maybe last 2012, 2013. All the people they represent are not black. This is what people don't understand. Because they're Hispanic constituents, they're Jamaican constituents, they're Trinidadian constituents, they're constituents that are immigrants. They're on them about what's going on at the Mexican border. If you look at who's down there at the Mexican border, the elected officials, there were no Republicans there.
Exactly.
There were no Republicans there. Okay, because many of these people understand that Republicans are anti-immigration when it comes to people of color. They're following along with Trump. All right. So you have many of their constituents putting pressure on them to take action. We need to put pressure on them to do the same thing on our behalf. But what's taking place at the border, this all comes out of white supremacy because they're not doing it at the Canadian border.
Right, and that's why I said, like, they're like, you know, like the Mexicans and the Hispanic community. I don't think they care about black people, man.
A lot of them are black. This is what we don't understand. What is a Mexican? Who Mexicans are made up of a mixture. Mexicans are made up of a mixture of Africans, Europeans, and Native Americans. Though, why do they speak Spain? Why do they speak Spanish?
Well, brother, I mean, the simple fact that, well, yes, they were conquered, you know, for them to speak Spanish, right?
No, they were conquered by Spain. This is why they speak Spanish.
Right.
Okay, so when you look at Cuba, Puerto Rico, you look at Honduras, Panama, you look at Mexico, these other nations, the reason why they speak Spanish is because they were all conquered by Spain. They were conquered by Europeans.
Right.
Why do we speak English?
Right. And like I said, it was forced by the European.
No, we were conquered by England.
Right, and I said it was forced by the Europeans for the black nation.
So what this is? This all comes out of white supremacy. Just because the European came from a different European nation does not mean it's not white supremacy. All of this comes out of white supremacy.
Right.
And white supremacy. And I'll let you finish in just a second. White supremacy pits groups of oppressed people against each other to keep fighting each other like a real life Hunger Games to benefit and profit the 1%.
Right.
Go ahead, and then I got to go to Tony line 2.
So in your instance, brother, you said that the melanated people here in America, you think once again, so we should not.
Hold on. We got to go to break, man. Stand by. I'll hold you over to finish that question. We'll go over the time. 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio on Michael Imhotep, the African History Network show. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, brother Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. We should be getting the call from Queen Taese here in a minute, also dealing with the Liberated Minds Black Homeschooling Education Expo. We need to talk to her for a few minutes as well. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so right before the break, we were talking to Jeff. Let's get his last comment. Then I got to get to these other topics. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, brother. So in a way, in the instance, so we as a melanated people here in America. Once again, so should we care about that? I mean, do you care about
Absolutely, yeah. I answered that question already. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool,
because,
cool.
see, do you read AtlantaBlackStar.com?
Not really.
Okay,
Not
read
really.
this article here from AtlantaBlackStar.com that came out today. Black immigrants remain a silent minority, but their deportation numbers speaks volumes. Black immigrants remain a silent minority, but their deportation numbers speaks volumes. All right, about 42% of undocumented immigrants fly over here. They come over legally on visas and overstay their visas. The Asian undocumented immigrants and the white undocumented immigrants are not being attacked and demonized like those of color, like the darker skin ones, like the Haitians, like the African ones, like the Mexican ones. No, this is by design. This is not by accident. This is by design. So we have to be smarter than that. We have to understand white supremacy and racism, what it is and how it works. Okay.
So you're saying Donald Trump, the Europeans, they're the real immigrants, basically, right?
Oh yeah, they're the real immigrants. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and many of them know it. And some of their ancestors came here illegally.
Exactly. And one last comment, brother. Now, I don't know if you read up on this about the Trump administration, what they about to do, what they about to do for the Haitians. Now, next year of July, Donald Trump administration he's going to deport 55,000 Haitians back to their country.
Yeah, I talked about that before. I talked about that a couple of months ago. Yeah.
Did you? Okay. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So, they're doing that, and they're targeting. Right. Immigrants coming from those nations of color.
Right.
This is who they're targeting. He's targeting Haitians, 50,000. They're going to, because of the earthquake in Haiti back in 2010, they gave them like 18 months, and then go back to January 8th 2018, he called immigrants coming from African nations, Haiti, and El Salvador S-hole countries.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you know, and Trump, you know, when Trump doing his rallies, you went to Little Haiti, Florida, saying that, oh, the Haitian people, the Haitian community people, you're my strongest champion. So
he was standing in line to him. He was standing in line to them, and they voted for him, and they're getting screwed. Yeah. They're getting screwed. Yeah. It's just like Chaldean, just like some Chaldeans and Arabs in Detroit, in Metro Detroit, especially Chaldeans. We were trying to tell them that what Donald Trump was going to do. They thought he was playing, and now they're deporting some of their relatives.
Amazing.
Yeah, I got to go. All right, thanks for calling. Keep listening. All right, U.S. Census Bureau, check this out. Midwest home to most of the counties with decreases in median age. This is a press release from the Census Bureau from Thursday, June 28, 2018. Midwest United States. Midwest home to most of the counties with decreases in median age. This is at census.gov, official website of the Census Bureau, right? Check this out. And on page 2, they talk about the increase in population. Hispanic population increased 2.1% to 58.9 million, 18% of the population. I did the figures, 327 million people in the U.S. The African-American population increased 1.2% to 47.4 million, 14% of the population. Asian population increased 3.1% to 22.2 million. Okay, so check this out also. This just came out last month from the U.S. Census Bureau, all right? And read this article that came out today, July 1st, 2018. Black immigrants remain a silent majority, but their deportation numbers speaks volumes, okay? With the scope of public opinion focused squarely on the ongoing immigration debate, it's becoming harder and harder to erase the images of children separated and placed in detainment facilities, with some unlikely to be reunited with their parents. But as the Supreme Court's recent decision to uphold the Muslim ban confirms, and black people, African Americans, immigrants of color, black immigrants are Muslims, elections have consequences. This is what this article is telling you. This is what I've been telling you for going back to 2016, before the election. And in the case, and in this case, the lives of Americans and immigrants alike will continue to be impacted by them. For those drawn to Trump's ability to tell it like it is, usually he's lying, he's doing exactly what they expected him to do, which we warn people about. Chaldeans, Arabs, we told you what was going to happen. Now they're deporting you and your family members. Following months of rhetoric that included calling Hispanics rapists, describing Haiti and African countries as S-hole countries. They spell it out. We're not going to do that. And telling Fox News that Muslims are, quote, a group of people that's very sick, end quote. Remember back during the election, he said, I think Islam hates us. He was in an interview. He said this. America's immigration system has changed, and the cost of the ongoing political war is mounting for non-natives currently living in the country. And while the Hispanic community sits in the crosshairs of the Trump administration's push for an immigration overhaul, and there is a such thing as Afro-Latinos, others have been affected as well. That includes black immigrants, which the Pew Research Center estimated had reached a population of 3.8 million by 2013, 4 times the amount documented in 1980. Black immigration has climbed steadily since the 1960s, thanks in part to the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965 that also created a new category for political refugees seeking asylum in the United States. Seeking political asylum is not illegal. Trump administration is basically making it illegal. That's based upon international treaties that the U.S. government helped to draft and sign. Seeking political asylum is not illegal. Okay, read this article because I got to get to the next topic. I don't have time to keep going through this. All right, and we should be joined by Queen Taese soon. All right. So this morning on Politics Nation, okay, Reverend Al Sharpton, Politics Nation, and there's a Comcast outage here in the area. So my DVR did not record Politics Nation. I'm upset about that. Didn't record AM Joy either. I got to watch it at MSNBC.com. All this money I pay to Comcast, and there's this outage. I got to call them. Hey, you got to give me a credit or something. Okay. I got up this morning looking for Politics Nation on my DVR, and the screen was frozen on Joy and Reed, MSNBC. right? But they talked about the toll that seeing repeated images of African Americans shot and killed by the police has. Okay, they dealt with Black America's mental health, and Reverend Al Sharpton spoke with Ebony Riley, Melina Abdullah, and Latifah Simon to talk about the importance of mental health in the African American community and the tragic death of Antoine Rose. Okay, let's go to that clip. This is from Sunday, July 1st, 2018, Politics Nation.
Prosecutors in Pittsburgh charged police officer Michael Rosfield with criminal homicide this week in the shooting death of Black teenager Antoine Rose. They broke with the all-too-common precedent of police officers evading charges, let alone convictions, for fatal shootings of Black civilians. Rose was shot 3 times as he fled Rosefield during a traffic stop. His death triggering angry protests, exacerbated this week by Rosefield's release on an unsecured $250,000 bond. This, as a new report finds, that fatal police shootings of individual Black Americans negatively affect the mental health of Black America. Joining me now is Ebony Riley, Bureau Chief of the National Action Network in Washington, D.C. Also joining me, Dr. Melina Abdul, Chair of Pan-African Studies at California State University, Los Angeles, and Latifah Simon, President of the Akanadi Foundation. Thank you all for being with me this morning.
Thank you.
Let me,
thank you for having us.
As I look at this whole question of mental health, I was looking at this study that came out that talked about how people do not understand the impact that it has psychologically on young people, and for that matter, older people in the African American community that go through these endless unanswered attacks by people that are paid to serve and protect. And though the numbers may be debatable, which is always the case, the impact of, if it's one a month, one every 2 months, of insecurity, of making people feel like they're living where there can be no redress or protection, has real impact on their lives. And I know that you, leading the Washington Bureau of NAN, and you work on this for us in NAN, Ebony, and hear about it every day as you try to bring this together into some kind of legislative and policy change. The psychological impact, give us an idea what you get from the field of how we have to deal with the trauma, not only of the families, but of the people in the neighborhood.
Absolutely. Experiencing and witnessing police brutality has reverberating mental and emotional effects on our mental health. You know, it sends a message to us that we are disposable and undeserving of dignity and justice. Society's underreaction and at times the justification of police killings are a constant reminder of our historical and the current devaluing of Black lives. I believe this study, the findings really speak to police brutality as a serious public health issue.
Dr. Abdullah, the study of this, I don't think has been given enough attention, of having to live under this kind of communal stress and trauma. How does this impact the entire lifestyle and environment of the Black community?
Right, so I just underscore what Ebony is saying, and when we talk about witnessing police killings, one of the things that the study points out is it's not just direct witnessing. It's this concept, this way in which Black people live. We have the highest sense of what's called linked fate of any group in the country. We understand that our fortune is tied to the fortune of every other Black person. So when you see unarmed Black people being killed by police and there being absolutely no accountability for those deaths, there's this ongoing trauma. I'll just tell a quick story. Yesterday, I was at the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Mall, and just 2 months ago, an unarmed brother, they say he was armed with a kitchen knife, but a brother named Grishario Mack was killed right outside of TJ Maxx. And I was walking inside the store, and I just felt this overwhelming sense of anxiety. And this is what this study is picking up on, is this kind of anxiety that spreads throughout the black community, whether or not you directly witnessed that death. We know that there's a sense of almost helplessness around our ability to protect ourselves, and as a mother, our ability to protect our children and our loved ones.
Latifah, in that sense, I thought as she was speaking, as Doctor was speaking, you know, I preached Eric Garner's funeral, chokehold victim of police in New York. I preached Michael Brown's funeral. I mean, on and on in the last couple of years. This year, the funeral in Sacramento. And it always gets me when I see all these young people looking at us like we're helpless. We can't do anything. And I don't think people understand not only the grieving family, but the collective grief in the community that we have to minister and analyze to is overwhelming.
No, absolutely, Reverend. You touch on what I actually came here to talk about, the study. And by the way, I'm on the panel with some of my dearest heroes. So hello, Ebony and Melina. Thank you all for being in community with us today.
They're my heroes too, by the way.
They are incredible. What the study tells us is what we already know, that when police killings happen amongst unarmed black folks in community, what the study tells us is that this is not just an individual issue of a mother grieving or a community grieving, that there are epidemiological impact. And what the study also tells us is that these harms are far-reaching, right? Akin to diabetes, akin to disease in communities, when you have whole communities not feeling safe at the hands of the state, when you have communities who are struggling every single day to figure out who will protect me, when it's not the state, when the state is actually causing harm. Young men in Oakland, California believe that they cannot sit at a bus stop, not because they will be shot and killed just by people who look like them. The study lifts up the reality that we fear the folks who are supposed to take care of us. And that causes a public policy response and a movement building response. We must change the culture of what law enforcement and safety looks like. And thank God this is the first time that academia has come together with a population-based study of merit. And I encourage everyone to read the story in the Lancet, this report. It's extremely far-reaching.
I encourage people to do what you said, read it in Atlantic. Ebony, how do we translate?
Okay, so the Atlantic.com has an article. I wasn't able to find it, but they're talking about the study. The AtlantaBlackStar.com has the article that came out June 22nd. Police killings are damaging the mental health in black communities. We'll go to Queen Taese in just a second. Hold tight, Queen Taese. Police killings are damaging the mental health in black communities, study finds. And I think they're talking about the same study as well. A recent report published in a leading British medical journal has confirmed concerns long held by racial justice activists. Police killings of African Americans has damaging effects on the mental well-being of black communities. The study published in The Lancet, Lancet. I think that's what they were talking about instead of the Atlantic. They may have an article, but the study was published in The Lancet, Lancet, this week. Found that when police officers in the U.S. shoot and kill unarmed African Americans, it has a negative impact on the mental state of African Americans in those states. Researchers poured over mental health survey data and a database on police shootings to solidify their findings, which they described as observable and real. Also, now this also deals with leveraging your dollars. This all comes out of policy. This all comes out of public policy. This also deals with leveraging your dollars to enforce public policy. This deals with criminal justice reform. This deals with holding police accountable, et cetera. Right? Read this article also from AtlantaBlackStar.com from 2 years ago, September 22nd, 2016. Frequent exposure to shootings of black people can cause PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, like trauma, research says. Frequent exposure to shootings of black people can cause PTSD, like trauma, research says. And I also say PTSD stands for President Trump stress disorder as well. President Trump's stress disorder also, okay? So check that out. And then study epigenetics. There was an article, let's see here, which one is this? There was an article from AtlantaBlackStar.com that deals with epigenetics, and there was one from ScientificAmerican.com. Descendants of Holocaust survivors have altered stress hormones. Descendants of Holocaust survivors have altered stress hormones. So this deals with how exposure to trauma can alter the FKBP5 gene of your DNA, cause elevated stress hormonal levels, and you pass on altered DNA to your offspring. Okay, so Dr. Rachel Yehuda has done experiments with Holocaust survivors, and then it was AtlantaBlackStar.com. They asked the question, well, what type of impact does this have to do with African Americans who are descendants of slavery? Okay, and we saw traumatic things take place, or they were taking place, they happened directly to us, or we watched traumatic things happen generation after generation. And then also you have police killings as well, and the trauma from that. Okay, so what happens to our DNA, and are we passing on altered DNA to our offspring? There's a whole field of study called epigenetics, epigenetics. Okay, and that's what this deals with. So when you deal with crafting policies, we have to go in with facts and evidence to change existing policies. We can't go on with feelings and emotions. We have to go in with facts and evidence. Also, lastly, check out this article from June 5th, 2016, AtlantaBlackStar.com. Post-traumatic slave syndrome and intergenerational trauma. Slavery is a curse passing through the DNA of black people. Post-traumatic slave syndrome that Dr. Joy DeGruy talks about in her book, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, and intergenerational trauma. Slavery is a curse passing through the DNA of black people. This is June 5th, 2016 by David A. Love. And in the article, they interviewed Dr. Monica Williams, Ph.D., director of the Center for Mental Health Disparities at the University of Louisville. Okay, so on the line we have Queen Taese, co-founder of the Liberated Minds Black Homeschooling Education Expo that takes place the third weekend in July in Atlanta. I'm there each year. So welcome to the African History Network show on 910 AM. Queen Taese, how you doing, sister?
I'm doing awesome.
All right. Good.
It's amazing introspection on what's being shared right now.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. All right. So it's coming up on that time of the year again, June 13th, Friday, June 13th through Sunday, June 15th in Atlanta. Yeah. Piedmont Technical Center is the Liberated Minds Black Homeschooling Education Expo. So let people know briefly, what exactly is this expo, and why is it so important?
Well, it really is an opportunity of empowerment for parents, for educators, for just those in the community who really want to make a difference in our children. And the whole focus of it is really dealing with classification of our indoctrination, as so many of us are looking towards homeschooling and just being more involved in the education of our children and changing the whole paradigm of what that looks like.
Okay, back up for a minute there. You dropped out for a second. Before education, you said indoctrination, something there was a word that we missed.
Detoxification of our own indoctrination.
Detoxification of our own indoctrination.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so what I'm finding is that many of us are deciding to homeschool, and many of us are really getting serious and really overstanding the seriousness of what that looks like as far as the education of our children and our communities, and ready to take a lead role for this, and understanding that the public school system is not going to educate our children to solve the problems of our community.
Right.
So that's really what the Expo is about. It's about training. A lot of times we have vision. As African people, we have powerful vision of what we want to see come into fruition, but may not always have the necessary steps. And so the workshops it's a full weekend of workshops on how to educate specifically our African children or our black children within our community, because we deal with a whole set of issues that are very different from a Eurocentric standpoint.
Right. And this deals with educating children basically from an African-centered perspective as well. So it's not just educating African-American children. It's not just homeschooling African-American children, but it's from an African-centered perspective as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely. I mean, because I look at it like, speaking to different people, we have to start with where we are.
Sure.
So the reality is many of us are in the public school systems. We are in certain private schools that may not be African-centered. And then even within the African-centered programs that exist and the schools that exist as well, we still have to have our own individual agenda and plan, just like they have the curriculums within the school system. What is it that's important to you for your child to learn throughout the school year, just throughout life? So not many of us create that plan. We say, well, we want our children to be successful. Right. So we have to really start to dissect and break down what does success mean to us. And is it an African worldview reflection of what success really is before we can begin on a journey of planning that success?
Right. So you said that educating African-American children, I think you said, is different than educating other people's children, or you talked about, it was something like that. What did you say?
Yes, it is very different than a Eurocentric standpoint of education.
Okay.
When I say that, yes, Eurocentric education is designed to empower them, not us. Mm-hmm. And so, either you're going to be on the top or the bottom. You're going to be in subjugation, or we're going to rise up to our rightful position. Okay. So my thing is, when we deal with our education, it has to be an African education, meaning that it's holistic. We're not solely just dealing with academics. We're dealing with a lot of our tools and our rituals and things that we've done over thousands of years that have given us strength and power to remain tight as family, mm-hmm. which is, the foundation of the education of our children should be the family structure, the socialization, the spirituality as the foundation, economics. All of these various things have to go, all have to go complementary, I should say, in the right. educational process. It has to work together. Right. So a lot of people, what I find, just focus on academics, but, as our way is focusing on character development as well, character building, having certain ethics, work ethics, morals, values. All of these things are critical if we're going to talk about really resurrecting the African nation, who we are, and instilling that in our children.
So you teach to the whole child as just opposed to academically. We teach to the whole child. Okay.
Absolutely. And then the healing, too. I mean,
right.
I want to put that piece in there because that's huge, because a lot of our children, like was said earlier, inheriting the intergenerational trauma mm-hmm. and drama, a little bit of both, and we have to find ways that or implement ways. We have many ways, but we have to learn more of our way and use those tools to assist our children in that healing process so that way they're not passing forward the same pathology that we're dealing with.
Right, exactly. So it's coming up Friday, July 13th through Sunday, July 15th in Atlanta at the Georgia Piedmont Technical College. This is the 7th annual Liberated Minds Black Homeschool and Education Expo. Visit their website, liberatedmindsexpo.com. liberatedmindsexpo.com. So you have workshops taking place. You have people who are experts in homeschooling, specifically homeschooling African-American children. Okay. This is taking place. There'll be vendors. The African History Network will be there. I'll be a vendor. And I am presenting on Sunday as well.
Yes. And Sunday is our Black Economic Summit.
Talk about that for a minute, because we only got a couple of minutes left.
Okay, well, that is a very important, powerful piece to the conference, because when we talk about educating our own and we talk about self-sufficiency, of course, economics is a huge piece to that.
Right.
So what we recognize is that it really was worth giving it that extra time to help us cultivate our own businesses of entrepreneurship, to help us understand the context of which we're functioning in, and bringing that all together to empower us, to share information, to network. And as you know, like you said, your vending, you have about 100 vendors over the whole weekend that have products, curriculum materials, Black books, everything that is a reflection of what we need in our community, and yourself with all the DVDs.
Yes.
I mean, where are you going to go and be able to, purchase that type of thing online or other places?
Right.
It's us. It has to come from us.
Exactly. And so you can come here, you can get materials for homeschooling. And even if your child goes to a traditional school and is going to continue to go to a traditional school, you can do some homeschooling at home in the evenings, on the weekend. You can get books, you can get DVDs, you can get curriculums. You can come and learn from the experts, okay, to also supplement the education that your children are getting at a traditional school. I understand that all African-American children, parents are not going to be able to homeschool, basically. But the things that you can do to supplement what they're being taught in school or not being taught in school as well. Okay. Give people the information once again so they can get into contact with you.
Okay, well, the website again is liberatedmindsexpo.com. The email is liberatedmindseducation@yahoo.com, and the phone number is 678-368-8593. If you're just interested in getting more information or just getting on the email list to join the network. Yes. If you have any questions that you need for the conference as well. We also have a host of workshops for children ages 4 to 10 and 11 to 17 as well, so I want to add that in there. So
good.
Really
so there'll be workshops for children also, so you can bring the whole family. 678-368-8593, and at the website they have the cost of admission as well there also. Okay, but it's a nominal cost. It's well worth it. This would be my fifth or sixth. This is my 6th year there because this is the 7th one, so this is my 6th year there.
Yes,
absolutely. And I'll be presenting on Sunday. So my presentation on Sunday is lessons. It'll be on lessons from the film Black Panther. Economic guerrilla warfare, political self-defense, and how to Wakanda the vote. Okay, so you don't want to miss that on Sunday. Okay, we're going to try to have you back next Sunday also, sister, because that's the last weekend before the conference. All right? Okay.
Sounds like a plan. I appreciate you having me on.
Okay, talk to you soon. Peace. All right. Okay. So that was Queen Taese of the Liberated Minds Black Homeschooling Education Expo. Visit liberatedmindsexpo.com, liberatedmindsexpo.com. All right. Check out the, we didn't have time to get into Juneteenth. Go to Michael Imhotep on YouTube and go to the African History Network on Facebook. I've dealt with some of the history of Juneteenth. We ran out of time here. But we know that the 4th of July is coming up this Wednesday, right? And those in Detroit, I encourage you to come out to Eliza Howe Park, Howell, Eliza Howe Park for the 18th Annual African Unity Day, okay, 18th Annual African Unity Celebration that Dr. Ola talked about. And when we know that the 4th of July, or 4th of July, as Dr. Shaka Musa Barashango called it, is not our Independence Day. And Juneteenth is not our Independence Day either. It's Emancipation Day. And Juneteenth commemorates when Major General Gordon Granger delivered Order Number 3 in Galveston, Texas, June 19th, 1865. Okay, and there were about 250,000 enslaved Africans in Texas. And we know that you had slave owners because of the Civil War who took their slaves into Texas. Texas was really removed from the Civil War. There were not a lot of Civil War battles fought there in Texas. And then when we look at why that was not our independence, because we were not awarded land largely after the Civil War ended. People talk about 40 acres and a mule. Now, that general order was General Order Number 15, or Special Field Order Number 15, issued January 16th, 1865, okay, by General William T. Sherman. And this gave 40,000 former slaves 400,000 acres of land, but only in the coastal areas of Georgia and South Carolina. But most of this land is going to be taken back by President Andrew Johnson. All right. Read 40 Acres and a Mule. 40 Acres and a Mule. Read that article at blackpast.org. Blackpast.org. Look at the broadcasts I've done and the videos I've put out dealing with Juneteenth. And I'll have a special one at the celebration on Wednesday, July 4th. At Eliza Howe Park that I haven't put out yet. This goes deep into the history of Juneteenth and deals with 40 Acres and the Mule and all this as well, okay? All right, so look, we got to get out of here and make way for Pastor Mo. Hey, we have a 48-hour sale going on at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We have the 6-DVD Black Panther bundle pack on sale. You get 3 of my presentations dealing with the film Black Panther, and 3 of my other presentations is on sale, $45, regularly $75. Okay, that helps support the African History Network, helps us keep broadcasting, stay on the air, pay the bills. Also, if you want to donate to the African History Network, you can donate at paypal.me, paypal.me/the AHN show if you like this type of information. Okay, that helps us as well. paypal.me/the AHN show. Also helps me to travel to events like this in Atlanta, okay, because I got to pay my own way as well. So, and you can go to AfricanHistoryNetwork.com also. Click on the yellow PayPal donation button there as well. Hey, remember at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. Remember, right now it's corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next week. Peace.